What is going on, traders? Let's get you ready for the upcoming week in the stock market. Last week, I gave you my favorite trade setups and investment theses. And this week, I don't plan to do anything different. I'm going to do the same. So I gave you guys BMNR up 12% since the video I reported. IREN up 20%, CoreWeave up 12%, and I told you guys that Tesla was reporting deliveries, and I expected them to beat the delivery estimates. There was a little bit of sell the news on Tesla, but I do have some key levels for you. Speaking of Tesla, there is also a major announcement upcoming this week. They posted this very cryptic image of what looks like a fan or a motor, could be a wheel, but it said October 7th. And if you do some digging, you could see that there is some speculation on what this is. There is a patent being thrown around that looks like it could potentially belong to the Roadster. There also have been these images leaked online of a Tesla Model Y Standard. I guess this is the affordable version. It's been driving around uncovered, so I don't know if it's going to be a number of announcements, if it's going to be one vehicle that's announced. I don't know if it's the Roadster, something completely different. And the government is still partially shut down. So we know that unemployment data was postponed last week. We did not get the unemployment rate, nor did we get NFP. Now, it is scheduled on the docket for this week. If you look here, unemployment claims on Thursday, but NFP on Friday and the unemployment rate on Friday. However, these, in my opinion, are tentative. They're just in case Congress signs some new funding bill that then reopens the government, or the Democrats and Republicans come to an agreement and they reopen the government. And then lastly, I will give you my stock market analysis, and we'll go over some of my favorite trade setups as well as investment theses. I love getting messages like this, like I did on X. This person said, I'm up 51% year to date with your guidance. Whether it's on the free YouTube videos, whether you're in the Discord, whether you're on the investing calls, whether you're live trading with me every single morning, I love getting these types of messages. And speaking of which, last week I showed you my Ethereum futures position. It was up, like 7,000? I'll put it somewhere here on the screen. We are currently up $29,000 on the Ethereum futures position, and I don't plan on exiting just yet. But some of this is tied to BMNR, which is an Ethereum fund that Tom Lee runs. So naturally, we will get into that analysis. And lastly, earnings season starts, although it doesn't get really interesting until about the third week of October. Let's get right into it. So just a quick market analysis, and then I'll get into the trade setups. But the S&P 500 once again made a new all-time high. It wasn't just the S&P 500. NASDAQ made a new all-time high, and the Dow Jones made a new all-time high in October. Now, what typically happens when stocks make a new all-time high in October? Well, most of the time, the Q4 returns are positive. Only twice in 1983, we had a negative return in Q4 of negative 0.7. And in 2007, we had a negative return of negative 3.8 just for Q4, not for the year. But over 90% of the time, Q4 returns are higher. And remember, we are going into a cutting environment, and the Fed is expected to cut rates 2 more times this year. And I don't want to really talk about the government shutdowns. To be honest, it doesn't really matter. The last time the government was shut down, the S&P 500 actually went up 10%. And if you look at this chart here, government shutdowns are really not consequential for stock market performance, regardless, even regardless if the president is a Democrat or Republican. Now, do we get a pullback in October? I mean, I could say yes, but I thought so in August or September, and August and September went by without a hitch. We are approaching earnings season. As I said, the third week of earnings season is when the real firepower starts to report. And maybe we get a little pullback before then. But all right, so Tesla, I want to go over this one first. We reported deliveries on Thursday, October 2nd. And I told you guys that we could get a sell the news effect, because a lot of this run up, not all of it, but a lot of it was due to the fact that the Tesla EV credit, the federal EV credit, was expiring. And in a lead up to that, we naturally got a ton of orders coming in advance of the expiring $7,500 credit. So we did beat estimates. We got almost to 500,000 vehicles delivered for Q3. And you can see the sell the news effect here. Now, for me, the real danger point comes if Tesla breaks below 400. So 400 is at 0.5 of this move up, 0.5 of the range. We do have a gap there, and 400 is a psychological level. Now, what's interesting for this upcoming week is it seems like all of the net gamma is above where we are trading now. We're trading at 430, and you can see all of this positive gamma going all the way up until the high 480s. Even if we take this out to November's expiration, you can see that there is some major gamma here at around the $500 level and some at around the 460 level. So I personally think that this is just a temporary sell the news before going higher. And like I said, I do have the 488 in sights, which is the all-time high. I do think we break above that by end of this year. Now, I told you guys last week about IREN, so let's go over it. It is currently up like 20% since the video that I did. So if you got in, congratulations. But not only from the technical setup, I also was looking at the options data and the gamma exposure that I went over. Check out the last video if you guys missed it. But on Friday, right before close, we got 20,000, which amounted to about $7 million worth of calls, the 52 calls expiring October 17th, and I posted these in the Discord chat. Now, I don't particularly believe in IREN as a long-term investment. It is purely a momentum play riding on the backs of two themes. Yes, not one, but two themes. One is AI. The other one is Bitcoin. So it is using its Bitcoin infrastructure, basically renting out the equipment that it had compiled for Bitcoin mining in order to rent that out as AI infrastructure to customers. Now, before we get into CoreWeave, BMNR, and some of my favorite trade setters for this week, if you want all of my trades, all of my plays, what I'm looking at, all of my long-term analysis, my investing thesis, my swing trades, and you want to trade live with me every single morning, link is in the description below. Shout out to upcoming Ninja Investor, pulled his portfolio out of the hole, now up 42% on the year. We have a couple of traders hitting their six-figure milestones very recently as well. Especially some of our AI plays like ASML and Dell have been going crazy. And I told you guys that Google was the most underrated stock in the market. Been telling you guys this since Google was in the 140s. So link is in the description. Come trade live with me every single day. Let's get right back to it. Now, BMNR, if you remember that they did an offering priced at $70 per share, which is part of the reason why the stock dropped and part of the reason why I was very excited to pick it up cheaply in anticipation of riding not only the crypto wave, but riding it back to at least that $70 in the near future. As Ethereum's price continues to run, and I do think Ethereum is going to hit that 5K mark by end of the year, I think BMNR's price will finally take off. I still have a modest short-term target of 64, but I do think that I can get to above $72 by the end of the year. Again, for me, this is a momentum trade. I'm not heavily invested in BMNR for the long term. Even if I do like Ethereum, I would much rather buy Ethereum and sit on it than buy a stock like this. Now, another stock that's breaking out this week, and I gave this early to the Discord members already saying, watch out for this breakout. If you don't believe me, here it is, September 29th. The stock hadn't broke out yet, and we finally broke out of the multi-month trend line here. So if we do have an Uptober in crypto, which typically can and does happen, I do think MicroStrategy can start breaking out to that $400 level once again. Now, CoreWeave is up 12 or 13% since I told you guys about it last week. It bounced cleanly off of this trend line here. CoreWeave and Nebius, these two I am bullish on for the long term, right? They are momentum plays, obviously, but I think that bare metal servers definitely have their own place in the AI infrastructure and the AI race and the AI space. Now, I'm personally not in Nebius. I did choose CoreWeave above Nebius. There is a justification for holding both. If you look at Nebius's backlog, I think its backlog is around $28 billion and its current market cap is around $32 billion versus CoreWeave's backlog, which is roughly $30 billion, but its market cap is over $60 billion. If we're just going by that metric alone, because a lot of these companies don't yet have a healthy set of revenues and they're still hyperscaling, then Nebius does pose a better value if we're just looking at backlog revenues compared to market cap. But I do think CoreWeave's trade setup is much better than Nebius's currently. Now, one of the trade setups that I am looking at this week, and I already sent it out in the Discord, is AMD. So AMD right now is in a giant bull flag, a giant multi-month bull flag. And then on the smaller scale, it does have an ascending triangle. So I am looking for AMD, obviously barring a black swan or something in October, which none of us would be able to tell anyway. I am expecting AMD to break out here. This to me is a major level. And I bet you if we pull up the volume profile here, you could see that most of AMD, most of its volume is resting at this range. So there's a pretty big volume gap or volume imbalance below, but around here is where we typically see tons of AMD shares traded. So that, along with its setup, along with the momentum, I do really like this technical setup here on AMD. And there's also a very low risk because if it doesn't work out, your stop is actually very close to your entry. Remember, if you're trading, you have to have stops. If you're investing, that's a different story. If you're trading and you don't have a stop, then stop trading or put in a stop. Now, JD, aka Jing Dong, is one that I gave you guys, maybe 2 weeks ago, telling you watch out for this breakout here. Finally did break out, and you could see that it is creating higher highs and higher lows, albeit in a very volatile fashion. But I do think that bouncing off of this level here, that JD bouncing off of this level here, there is a chance for it to start tackling that 38 range. Now, as investments in this late stage of the bubble, one of the themes that I am always looking towards are AI laggards, but with high quality companies. So Marvell is one of them, for instance here. AMD could be considered another one. The Trade Desk, or TTD, in my opinion, is one. I did a whole thesis on this in the Discord, broke down its entire investing thesis. And I think Meta here is going to start getting into cheap territory. Meta performing surprisingly bad since mid-September. I did think that we might see a bounce here. I might have talked about it in my last video. I don't remember. I did think we might see a bounce here. I actually did also buy shorter term calls on it that I ended up de-risking for a loss because I thought we'd sweep this level, this liquidity, and come back above. But once we printed this bearish engulfing candle on Meta, then I had to get out of it because Meta can fall below the 700s and in my opinion will be a heck of a buy depending on where it falls to. Right now, I am looking at that 640 level. I don't know that it gets there, but if and when we do fall below 700, then at that point, I will look for potential signs of a bottoming out or a reversal. Right now, in my opinion, there's no action on Meta. This is just a wait and see. And thankfully, we are getting a discount on there because I do think Meta will eventually go back up above 800. But the story with Meta is unlike, say, for instance, Google or Microsoft, where those two companies are spending a ton of their cash on CapEx, on AI CapEx. But Meta doesn't generate the same amount of cash as those big wigs. And so their AI CapEx represents a significant amount of their current cash flows. I am also looking at HIMS for a potential short opportunity. I think it was reported that Costco was potentially going to be selling Wegovy and Ozempic at much less than HIMS. I really am not a big proponent of this business model of HIMS. I do think that in order to compete, they have to indulge in quite a bit of shady business practices. But I do think there could be a short down to the $40 equal lows here. I'm just waiting to see if we get a confirmation pop back up. But I do think there is a potential short on HIMS. And the final setup that I'm looking at is United Healthcare. Now, I've been in United Healthcare since the low 300s. When it was tanking, I did say it could eventually get to 200. It ended up getting to 230, which was crazy. But once we confirmed a recovery here, which was basically this consolidation, manipulation, and then a V-shape back above a major level that I was looking at, which was around the 270 range. Then I started buying United Healthcare for the portfolio. And then obviously Warren Buffett had confirmed a small investment in United Healthcare. But I wrote a post on Twitter on sometime last week. By the way, follow me on Twitter and Instagram for free daily trading and finance content. But I said that United Healthcare is the only American mega cap company besides Walmart whose annual revenues are greater than its market cap, and by a wide margin. So $423 billion in trailing 12-month revenue for United Healthcare, and its market cap is $332 billion. And we keep flagging and breaking out, flagging, and we finally broke out. So not only from an investment standpoint, I think there is a potential trade thesis on United Healthcare, but certainly from an investing standpoint, I think right now the story is very attractive. And I think within the next year and a half or so, we can get to that 480 level. So those are just some of the setups that I'm looking at this week. But guys, join the Discord if you want all of my alerts in real time, everything that I'm looking at in real time. Obviously, I day trade every single morning at market open. But you guys already know that these are quality plays. I never do you guys wrong. Even when I'm wrong, I'll tell you that I'm wrong. But really, a lot of analysis goes into what I'm looking at, whether it's from an investing or trading perspective. And you guys know that already, especially if you're watchers of this channel for many months or many years. Now, one thing I will say about the market is if we do get that unemployment data finally, and it looks like unemployment is going up sharply, then I think that things start to become a little different in the stock market, because the tools that the Fed uses to fight unemployment are basically to lower the rates. But if we do have an inflation problem, then lowering the rates is going to make the inflation problem worse. So we have a period of stagflation. I'm not saying we're there. I'm just saying that we have to keep monitoring the employment data, because right now it just looks like we're in a typical bubble, maybe in the mid stages of a bubble. The inflation picture doesn't look great, but it doesn't look dire. And unemployment so far has been stable. So if we start to see cracks, then maybe my perspective on how defensive I have to get in the market will change. Anyway, traders, let me know in the comment section below, what are your favorite trade setups this week? What are some investments that you're looking at that I'm not looking at or that I haven't talked about? Would love to hear from you. Leave it in the channel below, or leave it in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell. Stay safe out there, traders. Peace.